don't hurt the Baund Doc.
I have to.
Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another model video. Unboxing, building and reviewing the Bandai 1144 HGUC Baund Doc. Appearing in the anime Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, the newish kit was released in 2020 at 5,500 yen retail or $125 my local currency. Containing 11 runners, 1 polycap, 1 rubber, 1 clear, rest coloured injection moulded polystyrene ABS blend in a very large, almost master grade size box with the typical crisp and clean new tooling, raised engraved detail but unfortunately a lot of plain surfaces, and recycled components with stickers. The instructions are very clear, bilingual including English, with geometric CAD rendered components clearly showing how to go together, transformation and colour guide for one of the variants. This model can transform in each state depicted in the anime: robot, walker and mobile armor, with a selection of standard and specialist hobby tools and mediums. However, only a nipper hobby knife and sanding material is required. We'll be doing the 2-cut method, removing the part from the runner, then trimming the nub down. Snap fit connecting points are reamed looser for disassembly, reassembling regarding painting, and plastic cement utilized to permanently affix parts together. We'll also be deploying filler putty in seamline gaps of 2 parts to appear as 1 part. This is allowed to dry for 24 hours and sanded the next day. The instructions will depict a number and runner clearly marked on the piece and instruction that you need to cut out and put together. It's easy to overlook this, as many brands and previously Bandai overlooked this and made the process confusing with larger part counts and poorly laid out instructions or no numbers on the parts. Baund Doc and Bandai kits over the past 20 years is a gold standard. No complaints. Humanoid mobile suits from common series can get very tedious and repetitive with symmetrical parts and a similar articulation joint breakdown and use of polycaps. I love the vintage designs of early UC, though as time goes on these mobile suits get thinner and skinnier. This one is still quite bulky with asymmetrical limbs with over flexible joints that allows for its transformation and easy breakdown, abusing the ball and socket pivot joint, creating many opportunities for colour separation. My personal preference is thick vintage kits, very thick, especially solid resin. We start with the torso. There's a lot of small parts for inner detail and colouring and the out of armour. This does get tedious, turning into an endurance marathon challenge that burnt me out a few times and needed to take a break spanning well over 6 months. Some of the rubber pipework, which cannot be painted or recolour, loops in and out, requiring more parts to be separatable, and overall at first glance is very intimidating for painters and modders. For snappers and collectors who can burn through a small high grade in under an hour, you're getting far more and longer playability build experience out of it, and more preferable. Attacking in small sections per limb and per colour, I treated it as mini projects or kits. The arms were really fun with multiple joints and different thicknesses and features on each side, with a really cool shield that breaks apart for the transformation process, and a massive really sweet claw. I love claws in mobile suits. And there's something very satisfying about assembling and painting large vents. This huge circular see-through one is just absolutely perfect, and one thing that drove me to this design. Clearly the best feature of the kit. Snapping the 2 limbs, torso and head, finishing a half and the skinny part of the build. Really well designed and no challenges for snappers, many challenges for painters. Moving on to the lower half, starting with the legs and feet. By the way, I'm following the build instructions in a chronological order. I don't always traditionally do this, depending on pre-planning, sanding and seamline work, which there is a minimal amount on the legs and forearms. A couple of seams on the shoulders, but something I can just manage with. I had to tackle this in so many sessions, I wasn't too mindful on speed running it through. The legs are definitely aesthetically and constructively relatively beefier, without a layer of color separatable armor and very well strategically played seams that included as panels. The feet will incorporate one part that will require masking but doesn't expose too much of the inner detail. Everything wrapping up to a lot of different socket joints and hinges that also make it very easily pull apartable. Feet claws in transforming mobile suits is also pretty cool. Finishing off with the skirt dish hull, very thin for weight management. Lacks a bit of detail, so used some pla plate, drilling out some holes and engraving the panels with a scribe and adding a bit of detail where there's holes to allow the connecting of weapons, which I won't utilize. I'm worried with some of these gaps you'll be able to see through the model, breaking the illusion of an actual bulky machine and very strong tanky mobile armor. Assembling it all together, it definitely stands under its own weight, but a bit fragile in the joints, and I'm afraid to transform it and test out its different modes. It will stay in the mobile suit mode. It's also a series of armaments, and with the mods I can't get the bazooka mega launcher working. I'll just have the rifle in the hand, which doesn't grip on very well. Otherwise, the profile and completely built looks really good compared to the line art and animation. However, stressful experience. I'm not against magenta pink designs, but it wasn't doing it for me. Google search for references, and I found the Jerid Messa version, which he didn't actually utilize in the story. Secondly, I was stuck for a long time abandoning the project on how to paint it and decided blending metallics with a heavy gloss coat. There is so much fiddling around and time wasting in test fitting, building and dismantling, managing and sorting parts. I broke everything down and kept it in separate colours and Ziploc bags, again treating each bag as a separate project and taking a break. Burnt out and wanting to push this project along, I committed to paint straight away without primer. Everything applied is automotive lacquer paint or hobby paint thinned with automotive thinner through a 0.5mm Gallier airbrush. The inner and grey parts starting with metallic black gunmetal and wash. The feet were the only parts that I've masked, and two components were primed just to check the seams did not re-split. Moving to the magenta parts that are colour swapped for gold, we started a base coat of silver, which also looked out for any faults and we did pretty well. Moving to multi-tones of gold with Mr. Hobby copper gold. This was shaded with a heavy wet base coat at the bottom and getting lighter to the top, with a final low light of Zurich metallic brown and dark brown for vents and thrusters. Of course, a touch of hand painting for the smaller surfaces. With all the detail, I furtherly thinned down Tamiya accent black wash with gum turpentine and sludge washed everything to pick out the panel engraved detail. This was allowed ample amount of time to dry and chemically harden, finishing off with a lacquer clear coat to seal everything in and multiple coats of an acrylic floor polish for the highest sheen possible. This process was repeated for the magenta parts with a Mr. Hobby GX line colour. Then finishing off the last Ziploc bag with the blue colours, starting with a homebrew metallic black, lacquer Tamiya dark blue and the faintest of highlights in silver. The project was allowed to chemically harden and dry over multiple days, even weeks, so if I handled it, fingerprint, indents and paint chipping will not occur in its final assembly and posing. A lot of the parts post-painting that needs to be permanently affixated together was glued with PVA glue, which is just strong enough to anchor it in but doesn't have the solvent to damage or ruin the paintwork. There was also fear of parts breaking or distorting like mid-2010 Bandai kits when they're exposed to enamel or strong solvents. This did not have any of that brittle or cracking issues, thankfully. This video does sound like a lot of complaining, though this is mostly my thought process in building and pre-planning the next step. It's between a skill and design issue. This is designed to be snap fit and consumed by a more toy-centric collecting, puzzle building audience base rather than the traditional scale modelers. As a snap kit with all the transforming trimmings, I recommend checking out many other videos and reviews that would be strewn across YouTube. Overall, well designed, good looking kit. It did bring me anxiety and took a lot of time and labor to get it to this level of polish and build in layering the paint. Not my favorite sort of project, but still enjoyed it enough and very happy with the finish result. It is definitely what I envisioned and what I would like to have achieved, almost resembling a mirror of the box art. Being such a massive mobile suit, it's also the only offering for the Baund Doc in model kits that's decent in the 1:144 scale, where all of my other Zeta, double Zeta projects are the 90s, 80s vintage kits. Considering all of this, it's definitely worth the look in if you have the time, patience, and the funds to undertake it. However, my dream kit would be this in resin, in the late 90s B Club style. This concludes the video. Pretty happy. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. Please check out the description section down below for references, links, and my social medias where you'll get more content like finished builds, news, and other hobby-related resources or reliable feeds to get my videos when they're uploaded. Happy to answer any questions in the comment section down below. This project and video has taken an enormous amount of time. Would much appreciated if inclined for a like and a share. Thank you very much, and catch you guys next time. See ya.